Hey, I'm Tom Seymour with VHS Massacre Radio. Some exciting news is that I actually delivered the newest film, VHS Massacre 2, to Trauma Entertainment a few days back, and got to meet Lloyd and hung out, took a picture and whatnot. Lloyd Kaufman's an awesome guy. I've known him for, well, it's complicated because when I was about 19 years old, we finished this film called Thrill Kill Jack, and it was 80 minutes, and we shot it on essentially VHS and high 8, and it was not very good. But we rented our own table at the Fangoria convention across from Clint Howard, who was pushing the ice cream man at the time, and we met Lloyd Kaufman. I met Lloyd Kaufman there, just as a fan because I just love the Toxic Avenger and all that. To some degree, there's been somewhat of a working relationship the past decade because of the VHS Massacre movies and the Monster Kill series. So anyway, Lloyd's a great guy, one of my heroes growing up, and as I call him, one of the last lions of the independent exploitation film movement. So every time I go to Troma, it's like my mecca. I walk around and I look at all the cool movie posters, and so it's very meaningful to me. And so VHS Massacre 2 is about the last stand of the American exploitation film, and Troma is a huge part of that. So the movie is essentially about how these exploitation films are being censored, financially starved out, and independent film in general is because of media consolidation being pushed to zero. So that's basically what it's about. There's going to be a screening at Anthology Film Archives on January 8th at 9 p.m. Right here in New York City on 2nd and 2nd. So please check that out. Just going to take a sip of this huge iced coffee. What I want to talk to you today about is film deliverables. So if you're going to make an independent film and your intention is to sell it to another film company for distribution, well then upon executing the contract, what you need to do is deliver these deliverables. That's why they call them that. So deliverables are a lot of different elements. I'll go through what those are. But for those of you who don't know, in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was pretty common for people to make independent features, low-budget features, and make them well enough for larger independent film distribution companies to acquire them, and then they'd be distributed. Of course, it still exists today, but it's a little more difficult, and the competition is much greater. And with things like YouTube, I think a lot of the younger generation have just opted to put things more for free on social media, YouTube, Vimeo, things like that. And some people will get paid revenue, but it's 1% of people will make any money, and the rest pretty much get nothing. So, but these independent companies still exist. Roger Corman's company is still out there. New Concord, I think I believe it was called. There's Troma Studios. This guy Larry Facender has Glass Eye Pix. There's Wild Eyes, another one. So there's a lot of independent film companies still doing it, and whether you're delivering a film to Amazon or Netflix or any places like that, they require certain things. So this is like some of the things that they might require. One thing is artwork and stills. So here are some of my stills from some of the people involved in the film. So you have Lloyd, Joe Bob, Jason, James Rolfe, James Richardson, Debbie Rochon. Um, Artwork. These are some of the graphics that Matt Ford had designed for me, which I think came out really cool. And then the video elements. Typically, this is my home computer, so it doesn't have the ProRes file. I made a 4K ProRes HQ master file of VHS Massacre 2, and it was 360 gigabytes. It was huge. So on my home computer, I just have an H.264. But I gave them both. I gave them the ProRes and the H.264 in case they want to do something with, obviously with. They have a streaming service called Troma Now, which is like their Netflix, for lack of better terms. I made a 1080 version for the screening at New Filmmakers New York. The other thing you need to do is separated dialogue. So within your timeline, you would let's say mute all your score and your sound effects, and then you would just export all of your dialogue separated. Then M&E stands for music and effects. You would mute all of your dialogue, which is part of the reason why you want to be organized on your timeline for whatever nonlinear editing software you're using. And that's why people use things like Avid and Premiere Pro, because of these deliverables are very easy to separate and things like that. Some of the newer programs you can do that, but when you're delivering to companies, you want a certain workflow so that it's efficient. So M&E is music and sound effects. So you're muting all their dialogue and you're exporting a track of just the music and sound effects. It's a documentary, so it's a little fuzzy as to where they could use this, but I suppose if they sold it to foreign territories. Territories typically are countries. It's a distribution company that might have a certain territory. Let's say Germany wanted this. They might actually dub over all of the dialogue with German dialogue. That's happened to some of the films I've done in the past. The Bloodbath Pictures, I think, in Germany. Uwe Boll, actually, that filmmaker who did Alone in the Dark and Postal, his company, Boll World Sales, they licensed it, and then they did a German dub, which I would love to have. That would be amazing. And then I did the director's commentary with James Richardson. Then extras. These are a few extended scenes. And then the movie trailer. And then the paperwork. The paperwork, this is a list of fair use. In the documentary, I used mostly it's licensed material, so you get permission to use the material from the filmmakers, and then a lot of public domain, and then a lot of stuff was actually from of Troma films. And so because I'm selling it to Troma, it's less of a big deal. So the fair use is a list of stuff that you used. I used mostly trailers, because if you use less than 30 seconds of a trailer and it's about film criticism, you're in a fairly safe place in regard to fair use. Fair use is something I could talk about in a later later video. Material releases, that's what I was talking about, where you're getting permission to use certain footage. Music licenses. There's what's called a music cue list. It's time coded. Every song that you use, and then when it pops up and how long it pops up and who it belongs to. You need that. I think for the unions, I think BMI and other places want ASCAP. I think you want to put every song that you're listing, so I guess residuals go to them. Proof of copyright. You fill out the forms online and upload your film to the Library of Congress. So anytime you try to sell a film, you're going to have to prove that you own it, and so you want to submit the proof of copyright. Then, of course, releases. So these are talent releases. These are just scanned. These are anyone you put on camera, you want a talent waiver to have it in writing that you have permission to use their interview however you want. So that's all done. But then also you need the producers as well. If you've brought on associate producers and whatnot, you need paperwork that says like, hey, this was work for hire, but you don't own the film. Like, oh yeah, I worked on this film, but it's not my film. So in regard to paperwork for producers, it's actually pretty important to make sure you you get that kind of thing. Bruce Campbell had a good quote once, which I'll butcher, but he said essentially, you really have to put your thinking cap on before you make a film and decide who it belongs to. So if you're making with a partner, you got to sort that out ahead of time. Like, this is our film, and you split it 50-50, or however you handle it. Biography of your talent. This I can open up. Some of the stuff I don't want to show full screen because it's like paperwork. So these are just little bios of the stars in documentaries. They're really called the subject matter. So I have James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd, Debbie Rochon from the Trauma films, Joe Bob Briggs, Lloyd Kaufman, and then I threw my little director's bio there. List of credits. Pretty straightforward. If you're using IMDb and it's you have accurate credits on IMDb, you can literally copy those off. And then, summary. Okay, I'm going to show you this. This is the biggest beast that I find. This is called a dialogue list. So it's obviously not a script, right? Look at this format. So it's time coded. Every time someone speaks, it's who speaks and what they say. And I think they need this for closed captioning, and it's just something that is just has to be done. And over the years, I've done a number of these for various films, and it's a pain in the ass. What I actually did this time, just to be to give you a shortcut, is go on Fiverr. However that's spelled, Fivver. That's that weird site where it's like you can hire people. So I found this person. If you look up people who do what's it called, stenography or transcribing, whatever. I hired someone fairly inexpensively, to do the dialogue list, and so that was a huge. Like, it's not worth it. Like, for me, I don't type that fast. So it would have taken me, really on and off, it would have taken me a week probably to do it. And so to hire someone, this person did it in a couple days. That's fine by me. Yeah, so that's basically it. It may not look like that much, but when you actually have to do everything yourself, it's kind of a beast. Yeah, VHS Massacre Too. We're currently entering film festivals. There was a video last week of some of the film festivals that we're continuing to enter. But we have some fairly exciting news. I got emailed about a possible horror con in the United Kingdom, which we may play at. We have the Anthology Film Archives in New York. And then some of the award shows, like Impact Documentary Awards and Independent Film Fest, those have gotten back to us. So there's about, let's say, four potential screenings/awards that we're in contention for, and so that's not bad. I think total I entered just under 30. I'm going to try to get it to about 30. Make sure it's above that 30 mark of festivals. Just to see, what we can get into. This is a very difficult, in a way, it's a follow-up to a documentary. It's like the documentaries really have sequels anyway. It's like, unless it's part of a series. So, when there's a follow-up, you almost start to call them like a series. So, so the hope is, if people respond to this one and still dig it, then potentially there could be a third one. So we'll see. The thing is, like, the first one did pretty well. You would be amazed at how many people seen it. A few times when I've called up video stores to research if maybe we'd interview them. They had already seen the doc. James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd, already saw VHS Massacre, which I was like blown away because that guy is like a internet giant. Yeah, so it's actually been really really awesome. And then two, Joe Bob Briggs, his career exploded after his series The Last Drive-In came out, and that was between these two films. So I'm really curious to know if having Joe Bob Briggs in the new doc will add anything. I mean, it always adds something because this guy is just such a wonderful orator, and his knowledge of drive-in and exploitation films is just vast, and so of course he's added a great deal of the documentary. But I'm curious if it'll equate to more people seeing it, I guess. So that's what I'm curious about. Well, anyway, it's 2020. Here's to a great New Year's. Hope everyone is safe and happy. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.